All right, well, thanks for coming, everybody. Even in the, this is weird to hear myself talk. Even in the inclement weather that happens every once in a while in March and April in the Midwest. Oh. Can we move that? Jeff, can you move that window just a little bit that way, maybe? I don't know if it matters that much. All right, so anyway, we'll talk a little bit about the logistics of the facilities here before we get started, and then we'll introduce ourselves to each other, and then we'll get started. So, all right. So this is especially for ones who have the opportunity to make it and miss because of travel. I will tell them later. We're having a second one of these in June. So this is two. They're basically going to be mimics. The second one will mimic the first one to a large degree. I mean, there'll be, not everyone will be able to make it who's a presenter, but for the most part, it'll be the same in the second one, and except it'll be in Laramie, Wyoming. In Laramie, they don't have a cave that folds out, so we'll have some other, we'll have a little bit a different feel for it, but otherwise, the topics will all be the same. And this is a collaboration between Indiana University and Idaho National Lab. Can we say that? So I have a joint appointment with Idaho National Lab, so I'm using that kind of as part of the resources to do all this work. Also, the University of Wyoming, Amy Banch, how's she pronounce her new last name? Bannock. She will be joining us tomorrow or maybe later this afternoon. And she also has a joint appointment at Idaho National Lab, and she will be the one hosting the Wyoming Bootcamp. And then Kitware is a software company that basically builds mostly open source software, and they're going to give a talk on their tool that we've extended to virtual reality called ParaView. And they too have been working, it's sort of kind of a little group, they've been working with some funding from Idaho National Lab to help get ParaView to work better in a virtual reality space. So these are the sponsors of our little gathering. So some of the things we want to do is really, the goals of this workshop are for people who have VR facilities, aren't necessarily, though, the end users of them. They're providing a resource that other people will want to use, and so want to have an opportunity to see what other tools are out there, mostly on the scientific visualization side of things, though some of the things can, of course, be used for multiple purposes, so there's some flexibility there. And really, if you have a virtual reality facility and it's hard to write a lot of applications to cover everybody's needs. So if there's already applications out there, you can take advantage of those and then get your facility used a little bit more and get some of your return on investment improved. And then also by gathering together in person, we can kind of build a community so that we'll introduce ourselves to each other shortly. And get to know each other, and then we can have kind of a little community where we can mail people. Oh, I know that you use the point cloud viewer, and I want to learn a little bit more about that, and so we can kind of share this. Oops. All right, so you have your guest cards, or guest badges that you can use, so you can walk around. So we only have a handful of re-entry cards. So if you're on the fourth floor, you're good, but to get back onto the fourth floor, it requires either going upstairs and talking to a receptionist and then coming back down and getting access, or if you have a need where you're going to go and come back in an hour or something, we can lend you a key card, and then you won't have to call us to get back in. And then as some of the emails said, we have parking passes if you want to use our parking lots across the street. They might, I don't know if today is going to be a good example, but typically they're pretty full. And so if you're just parked, or if you're just at one of the hotels that's a couple blocks away, then it's probably easier to park there and walk. So here's my phone number and Mike's phone number. If you, and these are in your notes, I believe, so you'll have the phone numbers. So if you have any issues that you need taken care of, all right, very good. Left-hand side of the folder. Oops. All right. And so the money that you provided to attend here is really mostly going to be returned to you through food. So we have, tonight we're going to go to the Ocean Air, and we'll pay for that. Tomorrow night is a kind of more, we're not paying for, so, but that's at the Creations Cafe. So tonight's food, and then breakfast, though, are at your hotel, so we're not paying for breakfast, but we are paying for lunches and tonight's dinner. So we'll have a lunch tomorrow at downstairs in the faculty lounge, and we'll have pizza brought in. And then Wednesday, since we end around noon, we'll have some box lunches. You can eat them here and stay and chat, or you can take them on the shuttle to the airport, whatever you want to do, or your car if you're driving home. And then we have break food that's just down the hall there, drinks and snacks and granola bars, things like that. So those are provided, and like I say, Tuesday and Wednesday are mostly on your own. We figure the hotels are going to provide anyway, and so we'll just do that. All right, so you can see that we have these kind of seats right up to the cave floor, more or less. We want to make it so that it's easy for you to, if I'm showing something, and I'll be showing something shortly, when I'm doing things, feel free to come up and try it yourself. I mean, that's the whole point of having a small group that we can all fit in the single cave, and then we want you to actually try these things while you're here, and not just as if you were watching a webcast of this, right? We want you to be interactive and have, a good motivation for why you came. But if there's time, so it's hard to use a laptop here. So if there's times when you need to use a laptop, you got some urgent thing you have to get done for your back home. There's some carols out here, or you can use room 415 or 414 where you dropped your coats off, and there's plenty of chairs with tables and power supplies as well. And if you want to use Wi-Fi here with your tablets or your laptops, use the ATT Wi-Fi. It's free. You don't have to pay for it, and it has better than the other free service here. So that's the one to use. All right. So we have 18 participants, or 17 maybe, and they come from several from energy labs, although at the moment Eric is our only representative from an energy lab. A few from different corporations, and we'll introduce each other in a moment. Several from different universities. Speakers from Indiana University, mostly me. Also Eric will be talking tomorrow afternoon. Amy Bannock will be talking about human-computer interfaces tomorrow morning. Eric Whiting will be talking about what they do at Idaho National Lab with their cave on Wednesday morning. And then Dave Zielinski, where'd you go, Dave? Oh, in the back. Will be showing some of the stuff they're doing at Duke University, and that's tomorrow late morning. And then there's several AVL people. There's Chauncey over here with the camera, Jeff over there manning the cave controls, Dave right here, and Eric right in the back there, and then Mike, who's handling the logistics of the badges and parking. And sometimes there'll be someone over here running the application kind of on the side. And, oh, I forgot. There's another speaker from Kitware. Kitware was a latecomer. They hadn't decided that they were going to come until a few days ago. So Kitware is also here, and Ashish will be joining us probably this afternoon for that. Right. Okay. And so Chauncey's doing the capture. Jeff's doing the system support. All right. So we're going to talk about it. Just introduce ourselves to each other. Just, something short. You're talking about yourself, where you're at, how many, what kind of facility you have, how many people are at the facility running it, what you're using the facility for, and your personal experiences. So I'll start. I'm Bill Sherman, and I've been doing virtual reality for almost exactly 20 years, and then about 3 years before that I was doing scientific visualization and kind of combined the two. So I've been doing scientific visualization and virtual reality together for 20-some years. I've been at Indiana University here for 4 years. I'm actually located in Bloomington, and Eric will say more about the AVL lab, but we have a facility here and in Bloomington, so it's kind of a spread across 2 campuses, and I come up here, every couple of weeks or so and try things out up here. Before here, I was at the Desert Research Institute, where we ran a similar sort of facility. It was in a science organization, so it was all about scientists using virtual reality facilities and non-virtual reality facility visualization. And before that, I was at the National Center for Supercomputing Applications and did more or less the same thing. So I don't know, should we start? Oh yes, we have a hand mic. Should we start with Chauncey? You're over here, Chauncey. And you know how to turn the mic on properly, so.
Yeah, so thanks. I'm just going to leave this on so you don't have to flip it on when you get it. So my name is Chauncey Friend, and I work for the Advanced Visualization Lab as an analyst programmer. I've been on for just about 5 years now, 1 year as an intern. The things I'm into really are augmented reality, but I'm really into just the VR workflows since they're really compatible with AR. I've got a few things to show you demo-wise in the other lab. We'll see those later on, probably tomorrow. But if you guys need anything when it comes to just how this stuff works, I'm into the systems pretty heavily, so just ask questions to me, informally if you want. Here's Dave.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Dave. I work in the AVL here, based on the Bloomington campus. I've been doing VR for 5 years, mostly supporting fine arts applications, but I also do just regular sci-viz work, usually in a non-VR environment.
I'm Brad, and I'm from Marquette University. I'm completely new to virtual reality, immersive visualization technologies. Our dean came to us and said we want to create a virtual reality lab, so I'm here today to learn more about the technologies and kind of network with you guys a bit. We're planning on building it this summer, so we're already working with Christy and everything for the design. So I'm hoping to get this lab up and running by fall.
Hello everyone, I'm Sushant. I drove from Cummins Engine Company in Columbus, Indiana. And we're just starting into the virtual reality space. But we are looking into a lot of manufacturing applications for virtual reality, like performing design reviews, using VR space, or doing a lot of scientific data visualization.
Yep.
And that's it. And I've been here before and really liked the facility last
So
time I came.
do you guys have tile screens now, or are you looking
We don't
to get a
have
VR
anything
system?
right now. All we have is a 27-inch 3D capable
Okay.
monitor.
Right.
But I guess we've been in touch with you guys and had a lot of share of information. Looking forward to it.
Yep.
Hi, my name is Simon Su. I'm a contractor at Air Force Research Lab.
You can't say anything about your facility, Simon? Is it secret, top secret?
It's not. We are doing basic research, so it's not really top secret or anything. Although on the applied side, we have some secret project. So basically, see if we can interact with the data better, so to encourage better understanding, all these kind of things.
My name is Chris Bruner. I work with the Walt Disney Company, specifically Walt Disney Imagineering, which is part of Parks and Resorts. We have a couple of virtual reality systems. One's a display wall kind of like this, just flat mostly. And the other is a more of an immersive in cave environment where it's about 20 feet square by about 12 high, and all the walls curve into the floor and each other. And we use our facility mostly for pre-visualization of upcoming theme park attractions.
My name is Eric Whiting. I work at the Idaho National Laboratory. Well, let's see, my facility and staffing. We have a cave, a four-sided cave similar to this cave. We also, in addition to the four-sided cave, we've built a lot of the portable immersive environments, the IQ station that Bill helped kind of put together. I think in total we have about 10 of those deployed. They're deployed to universities in Idaho and University of Wyoming. And the advantage, well, I guess we'll talk more IQ stations later, but yeah. It's a portable environment that's affordable and makes it easy for people to do things. Our staffing is very limited. We have 1, 2, or 3 people, depending on how we count. The primary objectives for our facility, our laboratory focuses on energy. It's a nuclear energy lab, and so it's the cave, a virtual environment, is extremely valuable to take people into, I'm going to say, environments you usually don't want to go personally. So for training and engineering purposes, we can take people into facilities and get them oriented as to what's what and how it's put together without any physical kind of risks and hazards and stuff like that. Our facility is also very useful for our university partners. Our university partners have been using it for helping to market their work and to sell their work and to look credible and to share their geology work and their, I guess I'm talking about that later too.
That's right.
Our
Yeah.
university people, I'll talk to you more.
Little preview of your talk.
I'll tell you more later on that. And then my experiences with VR is I've been working in this area for about 3 years, and we've leveraged this. We've leveraged the community, like relationships with Bill and Eric and others across this industry to help make our system successful. And it's our system. Last year we had 3,000 people come through it. There's a lot of people there's a lot of interest, and it does a good job of helping to sell the capabilities of our scientists and engineers. Helps communicate to what a very complex scientific thing. You put them in the cave, and normal people can understand better when they're given a visual representation.
Excellent.
I'm Jeff Rogers with IU's Advanced Visualization Lab. I've been here for about 13 years. I'm the lead on all the systems you see here today. So, like Chauncey, if you have any questions about any of the systems, I'm behind most of them. I know all the details behind them, and I can also help those who are building their own systems to avoid some of the mistakes that we've learned from in the past as well. I also support a lot of the virtual reality on the Windows side, and Bill is our Linux lead on a lot of that.
Hello, my name is David Zielinski from Duke University. We have a 6-sided cave-type system, so it actually has a door that you can close. You can go completely inside the system, which is pretty nice, and then you forget where the door is and you can't get out. To claw your way out. I've been at Duke about 8 years now. We have a pretty small staff as well. I'm the full-time software engineer, and that also means I'm the one responsible for maintaining the system, and so I also do a lot of the maintaining and upkeep the system and trying to figure out when we're going to upgrade the system, all of those kind of tasks. But I like to think it's more glamorous that I write all of the software, and that's the cool thing. I guess, so I'm full-time. There's a director for the center who recently, we had a little bit of a turnover, and we have a new director, Hedges Copper, and he started in January, so we're both full-time. There's a couple of percentages owned of some people for the full-time staff, and then there's some students. So pretty lean and mean. And let's see, in terms of applications we've done, I've been there for 8 years, so we've done I was just trying to write down a list of all the stuff we've done, and it's kind of hard to write it all down, but we've done some work with some cognitive psychologists who've been very interested at using virtual reality to create, repeatable experimental worlds that you can immerse people in and then test their reactions. We're currently actually starting some new rounds of that project with them. They're really into using electrical shocks, though, so which I always thought was only in Ghostbusters, but apparently it's an actual psychology technique to administer the electrical shocks. So we've done the cognitive psychology. We've also done a little bit of work with some medical visualization, primarily through Aviso, but I hear there's some other things I'm going to see today at this conference that might be worth thinking about. There's also been a recent push at Duke. There's an entirely new group they've added called the Visual Studies, and they kind of encapsulate a lot of the archaeology, architecture, historical architecture. They're very interested in kind of capturing the current site of ruins and then adding on kind of what they think are the buildings on top, if nothing more than to ask more questions or facilitate more things. So that's very interesting. I've done some virtual reality art stuff. Duke actually just started an MFA program, so we've been funneling a couple of those students have done some independent studies, and I've worked with them. We've recently started some basic VR research. stuff. About 2 years ago, I did something called the shadow walking thing, where I published a paper at the IEEE VR conference. Basically, realized that in a six-sided cave, you can look below, and you can actually see the people's feet, the shadows of their feet, which no one had thought of before. So that was nice. And yeah, we've done a little bit of data viz and molecular viz stuff, but that's been usually writing our own software. So I'm very interested to hear, especially about things like the LiDAR viewer. And let's see. Yeah, I think that's
All right. Thank you, Dave.
Oh, also, I guess I'll be presenting our most recent project has been the MATLAB, the ML2 VR. So one of the things is we're located in the engineering department at Duke University. So you might have heard this whole long list of collaborators and projects we've done, but you might notice there's one thing missing from that list, and that's that we haven't done a lot of engineering projects. But we're located in the engineering department, and they pay us. So one of our goals the last couple of years has been to try to support the workflow of engineers better, and we've kind of decided that, you know, just from asking around and from looking at it a little more formally, that MATLAB was one of the primary tools that on their desktop that all of the students use to work out their ideas. So we created kind of a middleware open source software system that allows people to use MATLAB in a very powerful way to actually write their simulations in MATLAB, write all the interactions in MATLAB, and I believe I'll be talking about that further tomorrow.
I hope so.
Hi, my name is Wesley Miller, and I'm a student researcher. I go to Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, and I work for Brown University. I just started with visualization stuff this past summer when I started researching with Brown. So I'm still pretty new, and I'm looking to learn everything I can.
All right. So are you affiliated with David Laylaw?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Don Allison from SUNY Oneonta. So I haven't done VR for about 10 years. I do have some very primitive facilities which are obsolete now, but anyway, I'm here to find out what's the newest and greatest as far as software and stuff, because last time I was doing this, SVE was the big thing for us.
Right.
That's pretty proprietary and out of date now. So.
Hi, I'm Eric Werner with the Advanced Visualization Lab here at IU. As Bill said, that we are actually part of the university-wide IT organization. So we actually are responsible for IT on the Bloomington and Indianapolis campuses, as well as the 6 regional campuses around the state. So we do have 2 major facilities, the facilities on this floor here in Indianapolis, and then down in Bloomington we're a little more distributed, but have similar sorts of things, the 3-screen, immersive, semi-immersive theater. It doesn't go down to the floor, and the walls don't move, but it's still pretty nice. And then a high-resolution tiled screen, and then a number of smaller displays. We do have a fairly large group. We have 8 staff, 4 at each campus, which is really nice. But then we take on quite a bit of stuff. We're responsible for all types of research support, scientific visualization, information visualization, educational applications of these technologies. One of the great things about VR are those potentials for education. Creative activities, so working with people in fine arts, also advanced media, 3D printing, 3D scanning, those things come our way. And then, of course, community outreach in terms of several people have talked about the power of these facilities in terms of communicating with people. So we've been at it for almost 17 years now, or 16 years. Our first cave went in down in Bloomington in 1997. And I've been with it since the start, and it's been interesting to see how it's evolved. And I think, especially the things that are coming with affordable displays, like we've been working on with INL and some other partners, have been really good. So look forward to talking with you all and learning more.
Yeah, I figured that.
Hello, my name is George Takahashi from Purdue University. I am the current technical lead and project manager of the Envision Center, which is basically equivalent to the AVL at Purdue University. our laboratory uses a very similar VR flex theater, similar to what you're seeing right in front of you. Our facility also focuses on very similar tasks on scientific visualization and VR simulation. We're currently staffed by 3 full-time staff members, and the rest of it are all mostly graduate students. So all of our projects are mostly student developed. Our primary objectives are for empowering researchers for their visualizations and their simulations for training purposes. And my experiences date back earlier. My background comes from graphics programming for video games, and then I started moving on, at least for my graduate degree, for the perceptual psychology in VR environments. And that's it.
Hello. Let me just catch my breath for a minute. Just ran up from Michigan, or down from Michigan. I'm Eric Maslowski. I'm the director of the University of Michigan 3D Lab. We are an open service facility for the entire University of Michigan, meaning anyone can come in and use our various technologies. We have similar devices. We have a cave, we have tile displays, workstations, and 6 experts to help people navigate these various resources. We focus on research, development, as well as instruction. So my background is computer graphics as well as digital art, informally trained, just passion.
Just your colleagues, I think, are the only... Oh, and Mike.
Right. Oh, and then, by the way, with this microphone, it seems to have a very...
Directional?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So get your rock star thing on.
Go ahead, hit our Michigan colleague first.
Hi, my name is Ted Hall. I just arrived with Eric and Sean Petty, who you'll hear from next, I suppose. All of my degrees say architecture, but I segued into computer graphics as an architecture student, and never actually worked in an architectural firm since graduating. I got started doing VR programming in 1994 on Silicon Graphics and IRIX and all of that good stuff. And Eric already introduced our facility, so I won't repeat him.
Sure.
I'll hand it on to Sean.
Hi, I'm Sean. I'm one of the programmers in the lab, mostly focusing on doing the 3D graphics programming and trying to bring some of the more advanced visualization features with lighting and using the GPU shaders. I graduated from the University of Michigan with a master's degree in computer science and started working in the lab while I was in graduate school. Been there for about 5 years or so total. Did a 1-year internship at 2 years, actually 2 summers at NVIDIA working on their DirectX graphics for their GPUs. So pretty familiar with the architecture of those GPUs and how to get good performance out of them. So that's a lot of what I do at the lab.
Great. So hand this over to Mike. Mike to Mike.
All right. Yeah, Mike Boyles. I think everybody met me, and I think I brought each one of you up. So, yeah, I manage the lab here. Been at it for almost 15 years now. And, yeah, I won't talk about our facilities. You'll see those throughout the course. So don't hesitate to find me, grab me, logistics, anything, technology, whatever. So we have a lot of AVL staff here. I think you've met everybody. So welcome. Thanks for coming. And get started?
Yeah. So, yeah, go, I don't need that one. So, yeah, and there were about 3 or 4 other people who were going to come but were weather delayed. So they may be, some of them, most of them I think will be joining us either tomorrow morning or if they happen to arrive this afternoon. So we'll let them introduce themselves later. So, all right. All right. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about, kind of get a conversation started on why we want to do immersive visualization, why we feel there's, some of us feel there's an opportunity there to help scientists in their workflows. Oh, okay. So, you know, one of the kind of key things that people see when they try out a virtual reality system is that it kind of provides this natural interactive method of exploring your virtual world, your data or your architectural space or what have you, and lets you actually kind of go into the data, and so you can kind of be in the middle of it, be surrounded by it, see it from different angles, or sometimes it lets you kind of step out but still be able to kind of walk all the way around it, see it from different perspectives, and be able to interact with it a lot more naturally, and see the relationship between objects a lot more clearly with when you have head tracking on coupled with stereographic viewing. So one of the things I think we've kind of struggled with places that have built virtual reality facilities is they tend not to be used as much as we hoped when we built them, right? But kind of when thinking more about this, I think sometimes we thought that the cave was going to be used where the scientists would come and actually do their day-to-day analysis, so they'd use a lot of cave time, and the facility would be booked a lot. But, I mean, kind of through anecdotes, but I think thinking about it, really, the cave isn't where you do your analysis. It's where you go out to be inspired or find some sort of little nugget of information or a clue to how things work, and then you take that information back to your desk, your computer, and start plugging away at it and see what the relationships are. So one of the colleagues of Dave, I think, right, Gil, did you work with Gil? So he had this research project where he was looking at the atmospheric effects of forests and forest fires, and he had kind of a demo in the cave that showed his data, showed the wind flow and things like that, and he was showing a colleague, and while he was kind of demonstrating his stuff to his colleague, something clicked and he said, oh, I see a relationship now that I hadn't seen before through their conversation. But then he didn't need the cave now. Now he saw the relationship, he went back, and then he just plotted his XY graphs and figured out the relationship from that. So the cave isn't where he spent all his time doing the analysis. It's where he got that spark that allowed him to find out what it was that he needed to connect the dots. So, I think it might be better for us to think of the cave or any virtual reality facility, I kind of use cave generically here, is that it's like a scientist who is a geologist perhaps and goes out into the field. They look for sites, they look for interesting relationships, they take a few measurements, and then they bring those back to their lab or their office. And so really you're just there to get those insights, take those key measurements, and return. And then for some places where the scientists go into the field, it's rather expensive to go. And so really, if you want to, you can treat the cave as kind of a recon facility. You might have a LiDAR scan of the valley that you're going to go visit. And if that valley is in, say, Antarctica, you don't really have a lot of time to spend there. Or if it's in, north of the Arctic Circle in Alaska, you want to know where you're going when you get there. An old-fashioned way might be to rent a helicopter and have them fly you around the valley, and then you say, oh, that's the spot I want to investigate. But helicopter rental is not inexpensive, and if you know where you want to go before you get there because you kind of scouted it in your virtual reality facility, then you can save some money and a lot of time. And so especially if you're going down to Antarctica or something like that, or Greenland, or any place that's hard to get to and you don't want to spend a lot of time there, if you're bringing new people onto your team, you want to get them up to speed as fast as you can. So really the cave is kind of like a scientific instrument. It's for taking measurements, like you would take a specimen under a microscope and maybe measure things there, or just like the microscope provides you a way of seeing your data, your specimen in different perspective, like really up close and really big. The cave or any virtual reality facility kind of is a tool for doing that, right? And in kind of on the flip side, some people use the cave as more of a data processing tool, especially when that data is kind of 3D intensive or you're trying to follow a path. So Dave's old boss did a program where you had a volume CAT scan data and you wanted to follow this fiber through the path, but it was really fuzzy data, so you can't just give a computer and say follow the fiber. It needs some human intervention, and so but it's kind of, you have to follow this twisting thing, it's all knotted up. Really, the cave there in that case is really kind of used as a data enhancement tool. And then we talked about virtual field work, so going out to your data set ahead of time and kind of treating the cave as if you were going out into the field, especially if, say, you collect some data from the moon or Mars or other places that are hard to get. And then we talked recon, I think, is the is another good use for the cave or virtual reality facility. So one of the differences of putting into the virtual reality is now you've really got to pay attention to your rendering speed. For desktop tools, you can get away with kind of slow interactions. 4 seconds these days feels a little painful on a desktop, but you know, in a virtual reality facility, if you aren't rendering at 12 frames a second, then that's painful, and 12 is really kind of pushing the limits on the negative side. And so to overcome those, a lot of times we subsample our data, maybe do it ahead of time, or we do some sort of level of detail while we're in the space. And I mean, this is kind of preferable, right? If you can do the level of detail, then all that data is there generally, and then as you get closer to it, it can come into view. Whereas the pre-sampled, you're kind of just getting degraded data, but it's kind of a sacrifice you might have to make in order to keep the interaction. Oops. Oh, okay. Right. So one of the things, you know, that sometimes we do when we get this new type of technology, new medium, is, you know, how are we going to interact with it? You know, a common thing to do is kind of take what we're familiar with and just extend it a little bit or kind of revisit that. But we have some new things that we can do in the cave, and that's, you know, when we're manipulating objects or we're navigating through objects, we can do so more in a natural 3D, six-dimensional, even if you include rotations. But then, you know, we have some things like menus and that we're kind of revisiting from the desktop. But now we have pointers that point in all directions. It's not just kind of straight into the screen. So we want to relearn how we're going to select things. People are experimenting with circular menus because, you know, you can point kind of in any direction, so you're not limited to a linear sort of list. You know, another curious thing, of course, is often if you're in a cave or a virtual reality space, you don't have a keyboard. So how is it you're going to do things that would be really easy on the desktop, just punch a few numbers in? What's a good way to get the right value into your space without breaking your concentration and breaking out a keyboard or something like that? And then, of course, another thing is the cave, especially if you have tracking technology, different tracking technologies, don't always give you the precision you might want to scale your space. Precise measurements. I don't know what that's doing. All right. Right, so I kind of alluded to this. One of the things we often do is take these standard metaphors, things that we're used to on the desktop, and then we kind of bring that into virtual reality. And you're going to see a lot of that, especially today. A lot of the applications, or all the applications we're going to look at, are all based on the VRUI Virtual Reality Toolkit. And so it kind of does that, right? It takes a lot of what we're used to on the desktop and brings that into the cave. The menus can float around you. You can have menus kind of overlapping each other. You can look around them if you have that many of them. It's something that you're familiar with, but it may not be the best environment for virtual reality. But as the last bullet says, then we, you know, being familiar with it on the desktop means that we can kind of jump. So we have to kind of evolve these interfaces, right? So if you're just going into the cave, you don't have to relearn everything. So in some sense, having the 2D interface kind of gives you this familiarity that makes you a little more comfortable. So, and just we're going to talk about a handful of VR tools in a moment. I'll go through the list. And they kind of have, we can break them down in different ways. One of the ways we can break them down is whether they were special purpose tools or general purpose tools. Again, most of them are going to be visualization oriented. You know, when we first started doing virtual reality, when it came, you know, virtual reality was first sort of imagined, or at least first implemented, let's say, in 1968. But there really a couple of decades passed before it really became a thing that universities were doing on a wider spread basis. And so we'll call that the early 90s, kind of the dawn of VR. And at that time, there weren't really toolkits available. There were some animation packages that could produce geometries, but we then would just kind of load that geometry maybe into a VR space. And all the tools were mostly, or 99.9% written for special purpose, for a specific science, for a specific scientist even, and for their data, and often written just for virtual reality. And now we've graduated kind of a little bit. We're also doing some general purpose work, which helps integrate us into the workflow of scientists if they're already using a general purpose visualization tool. and we add a little virtual reality to it, then again, the familiarity is there, and it's a little less, intimidating to move on to kind of this technology. And another kind of dichotomy here between the general purpose and the special purpose is that general purpose, there's a high percentage. You have some data, you're going to be able to bring it right in and do something with it. Now, that something that you can do with it might not be what you're specifically looking for, in which case, often you'll fall back to some sort of special purpose thing. But at least, you can get a flavor of it with the general purpose before you kind of decide whether you want to go to something special. And then a lot of times on our general purpose tools, and we'll see this, virtual reality, the general purpose tools are frequently written for the desktop, and often then the virtual reality aspect to it is kind of an add-on, and it often shows that way. And you'll see that in a couple applications here, where the virtual reality interface really is fairly minimal. It adds something, it adds you the ability to walk through the space and experience your thing in the data, but it's, in some cases, it doesn't do a whole lot more than that. All right, so this is a list of basically what we're going to look at in the next two days, four sessions. And this afternoon we'll look at a volume visualizer called Tort Samle and a point cloud visualizer called LiDAR Viewer. And again, both of these use the virtual reality user interface from Oliver Krylos at UC Davis, and we'll do a little introduction to that in a moment. We'll look at some special purpose tools, or some sort of, well, VMD is kind of it's a special purpose tool for molecular dynamics, but it has a wide base of use, and we've kind of added virtual reality onto that. Again, a little minimally. Dave Zelinsky from Duke talked a little bit about his MATLAB to virtual reality thing, and he'll talk about that. Tomorrow afternoon we'll have Kitware, a representative from Kitware, present ParaView and how we've kind of collaborated to add some virtual reality interface to ParaView as more of a general viz package. In the schedule, there's a talk that says CalVR. I'm going to focus on one particular, I'll discuss a little bit about CalVR, but that's more of the virtual reality package. And I'm going to show a little tool called Artifact Viz, which is an archaeological visualization tool that they've developed. And then we'll talk a little bit about modeling viewing. I've kind of represented it with X3D, but it'll be a little bit more broad than that, I think. So we'll talk about just loading in models, and you can do pre-visualization and spatial visualizations and things like that. And then we'll kind of, at the end, we'll go back to a general purpose visualization tool written specifically for virtual reality. And this is also part of the UC Davis RUI suite of tools. And so we'll kind of end up on that on Wednesday morning. And then we'll also have, like we said, Eric will give a talk on how they're using virtual reality and immersive visualization at Idaho National Lab and their collaborations. And then we'll have Amy Bannock from University of Wyoming talk a little bit about human-computer interfaces and virtual reality experiences. Oops, oh yeah, so here's our schedule. So we're creeping into our time on VRUI basics, but I think that's okay. We can push things down a little bit. So I'll talk a little bit for about a half hour or so on just VRUI itself, and we'll just show a couple of demo applications with no real data. But we'll talk about the whole interface, and then we'll talk about two applications that use VRUI, the volume visualizer and the point cloud viewer, and then I'll talk a little bit about VRUI configuration, and that we have 45 minutes there, but we may not use that whole time. But and again, come on up when something's being shown. You'll all have your stereo glasses. You can come up. You can swap them for the tracked glasses, which are on this little, what do we call him? Harry here in the middle of the cave. And and so we want you to interact. All right, and then we're going to have dinner tonight, part of the boot camp, and we will gather at. Do we want to gather in the lobby here then, or because people are at about 2 or 3 hotels? They are. Most people are at the Marriott, but. Yeah, we'll have to talk about that here. All right, so we'll talk about that at that point. Yeah, so somewhere dinner starts about 6:30, so somehow we'll all get there. It's a walking thing, so wear your walking shoes, I guess. And yeah, and that's at the Ocean Air. And so tonight's dinner and beverages are covered by you through your boot camp fees. Oh, and today is all room 403. We're in room 403 right now, where our virtual reality facility is. And so today is all in here. We're going to mix it up a bit tomorrow. And we'll start in 414, which is the room down the hall that most of you saw where Mike had you take your coats. And then we'll have some kind of general purpose, some talks where we're not going to have as much interaction, and we'll do those there. Or at least we'll start there with Amy's talk. I'll show VMD, and then Dave will show MATLAB. Then we'll have lunch downstairs here. We want to go that. And then tomorrow afternoon, Kitware will present ParaView, and we'll have several examples of that. And we'll probably do a little bit of an introduction of what is ParaView as a non-VR tool, as a desktop tool. And then we'll show the virtual reality additions to that and how that can kind of work into the workflow. We'll do our break. That'll be here. We'll do our break down in 414, and at the same time, Chauncey and Jeff and Mike will be demoing things, some of the other stuff that our group does. And then I'll talk about CalVR, and I'll show a little bit of broad things about CalVR, but mostly we'll look at the Artifact Viz tool there. And then Eric Werner will talk about model viewing to wrap things up tomorrow. And then again, we'll go out to dinner, but this time it's on your own, but the payment is on your own. But if you want to gather with us, we're going to the Creation Cafe, which is also in walking distance. And then finally, Wednesday, we're expecting to have breakfast at your hotels. We'll meet at 9 o'clock downstairs. Eric will give his talk on workflow, and a lot of what they do uses low-cost VR systems that they've deployed to different universities. And then I'll kind of talk a little bit about that effort right after his talk. We'll do more open demos with a break. We'll have some sort of kind of general mishmash of things here. We'll all talk about importing data and virtual reality utilities and probably other topics as well, all mashed together. And then and that'll kind of be part of a capstone, or this 3D visualizer. One of the things we'll kind of cap it up with more of this general purpose tool that has lots of features that we can interact with. And then we'll have, like I said earlier, we'll have box lunches for you to take on your ride home, or you're welcome to stay for an hour or two or whatever, and see some more demos, and we can do that between the last talk and dinner as well, each tonight and tomorrow night. All right. So again, we want this to be more interactive. So for my talks, at least, I'll be giving kind of maybe a 10 or 15-minute overview of the software with some slides, and then I'll jump into the cave and we'll actually start looking at how it works. And then you're welcome to jump out of your seats and try it out for yourselves. Right? And then if you have some data that you want to show, we can try and do that during the breaks. We can try and load it up if we think we can get it into the tool really easily, or if you want to come even after dinner, we can try and do something there too, because I will be here after dinner working with Kitware and folks who will be giving talks tomorrow. So we can do that. All right, there we go. So that's our introduction talk, and next talk is Vrui. And that's before, you want to do that?